Jessica wanted freedom. Aaron wanted forever. What began as a dream engagement ended with betrayal, blackmail, and an international chase. Jessica was known for her bright smile, golden hair, and contagious energy. She was a travel blogger, always hopping from one country to another, her camera capturing moments that would make anyone dream of faraway lands. Aaron was the opposite: quiet, grounded, someone who enjoyed the comfort of home and structure. She became distant, distracted. She spent longer hours on her phone, but not replying to texts, just scrolling or laughing at things she never shared with him. She took more solo walks, often came back late from errands, and began snapping at small things. A chance to ground herself before becoming someone's wife. "I just want to go alone this time," she said, "to think. To clear my head." Aaron hesitated. He wasn't the jealous type, but something about her tone felt different, cold, calculated, almost rehearsed. He asked if she was sure. She smiled and said yes, kissed him on the forehead and told him not to worry. She ignored the question and responded hours later with a photo of a fruit market. When Aaron asked if everything was okay, she insisted it was just wedding stress. No explanation, just silence. Her social media remained active, but she had turned off comments. New photos appeared: daily beach scenes, spa visits, photos of sunsets, but no mention of Aaron, no trace of their engagement. She didn't wear her ring in any of the pictures. That small detail hit him the hardest. He looked back through her posts. She had worn the ring in every photo leading up to the trip. Now it was gone. He shared his worries with his best friend, who suggested it might be cold feet, or maybe she just needed space before the wedding. Finally, he sent her a message. "If you don't want this, just tell me." She never responded. That night, Aaron sat alone in the apartment they shared, staring at her untouched side of the bed. The framed photo of them in Morocco sat on her nightstand, the smile on her face now feeling foreign to him. Her goodbye wasn't emotional. There were no tears, no long hugs at the airport. She was dressed in her usual travel gear: linen pants, sunglasses, and a wide-brimmed hat. She promised to message him when she landed. Hours later, she did. When she did reply, it was short, sometimes hours later. He felt like a ghost, drifting through his own life, watching his future crumble from the other side of the world. What he didn't know then, what he couldn't even imagine, was that Jessica, their solo trip was only the beginning of something far more disturbing than heartbreak, something darker than infidelity, something criminal. He wanted answers, but all he had were pictures, silence, an annoying feeling that everything he believed about their relationship had been a lie. The apartment felt emptier by the day. Her belongings were still there: her favorite books, her clothes, her half-used shampoo. But Jessica was gone, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and maybe permanently. She claimed the Wi-Fi was bad, or she had lost track of time during meditation. One night, he saw a photo on her Instagram story, just for a few seconds before it disappeared. It was a blurry shot of a cocktail glass held up to the sunset. What caught his attention was the reflection in the glass. A man's silhouette, shirtless, with his arm wrapped around someone. "Arrived safe," was all the message said. No hearts, no emojis. "I just need a little breathing room," she said. "This wedding is a lot." He worked in IT, spending his days behind a computer screen, analyzing code and solving problems. It was this contrast that made them appear perfect. She brought excitement to his world, and he offered stability to hers. When Jessica left for a solo trip to Bali, she promised to return. Instead, she vanished into a world of secrets, seduction, and multiple affairs, leaving behind a fiancé, a trail of stolen identities, and a mystery still unraveling. Her photos showed her doing yoga on a rooftop at sunrise, holding coconuts by the pool, walking along beaches with vibrant blue waters in the background. But there were signs, even early on, that something wasn't right. Her captions were vague, sometimes cryptic. "Learning to love myself again," one post read. "The truth always surfaces," said another. She began posting less frequently, and when she did, it seemed like she was somewhere new, somewhere different than what she had planned. Jessica and Aaron had always looked like the kind of couple that belonged in a magazine. Their friends described them as goals. They met at a wedding in late spring. Jessica had been a friend of the bride, Aaron a cousin of the groom. Their connection was instant, magnetic. Within a few months, they were spending nearly every weekend together. Jessica started including Aaron in her travel plans, and Aaron, despite his initial resistance, began to embrace the adventure. Their photos from Prague, Venice, and Cape Town flooded her blog and Instagram. Her followers adored him. He was the supportive, handsome fiancé who stood by her side as she explored the world. When Aaron proposed on a cliffside in Santorini at sunset, it felt like the natural next step in their fairy tale. He had arranged a photographer, a string quartet, and even hidden the message in a bottle that washed ashore. Jessica cried when she said yes. The video of the proposal went viral. Strangers from around the world sent them congratulatory messages. Wedding planning began immediately. Jessica wanted a destination wedding, something small, intimate on a beach in Costa Rica. Aaron agreed, though he admitted he'd have been just as happy at City Hall. He didn't care about the event. He only wanted to marry her. As the months rolled on, Aaron noticed changes in Jessica. Then came the trip. She told him it was something she needed to do for herself. A solo month in Bali. She flew out the next week. At first, Aaron tried to be supportive. He liked some of her posts, left a few encouraging comments. Aaron called a few times, but she didn't answer. He messaged her about it, casually asking if she had met anyone. Aaron didn't know what to do. He didn't want to come across as paranoid, but his gut told him something was off. 2 weeks into her trip, she stopped answering his texts altogether. He called her again and again. No answer. Aaron began losing sleep. He couldn't concentrate at work. And yet, despite all of this, Aaron still hoped it was a phase, that she would return with clarity, regret, and an explanation. Aaron sat in his living room with the curtains drawn, the glow of his laptop lighting his face as he scrolled through Jessica's social media for the 5th time that morning. Her latest post was a filtered photo of her in a hammock, smiling into the sun with a caption that read, "Peace is found when you let go." It had over 3,000 likes. Strangers flooded the comments with compliments, but Aaron saw through the curated image. He saw the absence, no ring, no mention of him, no replies to his texts. It had been 4 days since he last heard her voice. He kept telling himself she was just taking space, as she'd said. Maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe she needed to disconnect from everything before their wedding. No profile picture, no followers. Just one line of text. "You should know what she's doing out here." Attached was a blurry photo taken at night. Jessica, dressed in a revealing outfit, was laughing with a group of people. 2 men stood close to her, one with his hand on her lower back. He didn't expect to get much, but he needed to try. A polite voice on the other end confirmed that Jessica had checked in, but when he asked who she was staying with, they refused to disclose any information. "Privacy policy," they said. Then something slipped. "Guests checked out 2 days ago together," the receptionist added before quickly correcting themselves and hanging up. After reading several reviews, he contacted a private investigator named Andika, who specialized in tracing missing persons and collecting discreet surveillance. He sent Andika the details: Jessica's name, her latest known locations, and the suspicious financial activity. The image was grainy, almost surreal, but it was her. She had been living a double life, bold, reckless, and funded by him. The betrayal ran deeper than infidelity. It was deception on every level. She had posted from 3 different spots in the last week, none of which were on her original itinerary. Jessica had been smiling for the camera, laughing in shared memories, all while preparing to disappear into another world, one where he didn't exist. Jessica's actions were beginning to connect her to something criminal. He wasn't sure yet what it was, but the more he dug, the clearer it became. Jessica had disappeared into a world of secrets, lies, and possibly something far worse than infidelity. Locals had seen her dancing at a club known for private VIP events, arriving late at night and leaving with different companions. The men she was with didn't look like tourists. One wore a security earpiece. Another had a distinctive tattoo Aaron recognized from an old news article about a cybercrime syndicate. The atmosphere wasn't just about partying or romance. It was starting to look like something else, something dangerous. She often used a different name when checking into places. She paid for drinks, meals, and even transportation using Aaron's credit card. Jessica at a rooftop bar, kissing someone on the cheek. Jessica walking barefoot along a private beach, holding hands with a tall man in a floral shirt. Each image was a blade, carving away at Aaron's trust, his hope, his love. One staff member from the luxury villa mentioned Jessica had thrown a private pool party for a group of international guests, though no names were given. Jessica, the woman who had once cried with joy over their engagement, now cozy with strangers in Bali? He didn't want to believe it. He told himself it could have been a misunderstanding, a moment taken out of context. But the photo had a timestamp just 2 nights ago. She was supposed to stay in a wellness resort in Ubud for 2 weeks. He messaged the anonymous account, asking for details, but the profile had already been deleted. That night he barely slept. His thoughts spun with questions. Why had she changed her itinerary? Who were the men in the photo? Had she planned this from the start? Everything started to fall into place. The ring missing, the silence, the late-night charges, the vague captions. The woman who left for a solo trip hadn't traveled solo for long. What stung the most wasn't just the betrayal, but how easily she had moved on without a word, as if he didn't matter, as if he had never mattered. But now she was tagging beach bars, cliffside hotels, and a luxury villa known for exclusive parties. Her trip had changed, and she hadn't mentioned it once. Still, her sudden emotional distance made no sense. They had talked daily before she left. Multiple charges popped up from nightlife venues, restaurants, and boutique hotels. One in particular stood out a bill from a private villa resort where rooms started at $900 a night. It wasn't just expensive. It was adult-only and known for its party scene. She hadn't told him about it. In fact, she had booked it the day after she stopped replying to his calls. Now she seemed unreachable, like she was intentionally cutting him out. He checked his call log again. 4 missed calls, no responses. Each silence spoke louder than the last. Trying not to panic, Aaron looked at her tagged locations. Aaron decided to check her credit card statements. Since they shared a joint account for wedding expenses, he still had access. What he found only deepened his suspicion. Feeling more uneasy than ever, Aaron reached out to her best friend, Megan. When he asked if Jessica had been in touch, Megan paused too long before answering. "I think she's just figuring some things out," she said vaguely. That phrase stuck in Aaron's mind like a splinter. Figuring things out? What was there to figure out 3 months before a wedding? The next morning, Aaron received an anonymous message on Instagram. He stared at the photo for a long time, his mind refusing to process what it suggested. Aaron felt a deep ache settle in his chest. He knew he had to find out more. The following day, Aaron called the resort listed on her latest credit card charge. That word echoed in Aaron's head. Guests, plural, together. She wasn't alone. She hadn't been for a while. Desperate for answers, Aaron searched forums for local investigators in Bali. Andika agreed to begin immediately. Within 48 hours, he sent his first report. Jessica had been spotted with at least 3 different men across various tourist spots. Aaron sat in stunned silence as he read the report. His fiancé hadn't just cheated. He thought about their past conversations, the plans they made, the wedding invites already mailed out. Everything now felt like a performance. A second message came from Andika, this time with photos. Jessica on a scooter, hugging a man from behind. But there was something else in the photos, something that disturbed him more than the cheating. Aaron realized he might not just be dealing with a broken engagement. And Aaron, unknowingly, had helped pay for all of it. Aaron felt like a man unraveling. Every new piece of information seemed to strip away another layer of the woman he thought he knew. He had always believed love could survive anything: arguments, distance, even fear. This time, the tone was different, sharper, more urgent. Andika had followed up on several leads and had compiled a timeline of Jessica's movements since her arrival in Bali. According to multiple sources, she had spent the first 4 days alone at the retreat in Ubud, just as she had planned. She was seen entertaining multiple men, laughing, dancing, and even accompanying 2 of them upstairs for extended periods of time. No one knew what exactly went on behind those doors, but it was understood that consent and clarity were blurred lines in that villa. One was a Serbian national who had fled his country under allegations of online fraud. Another was a former British banker who'd been questioned for laundering money through cryptocurrency. All of them were connected, whether through parties, mutual transactions, or overlapping travel patterns. But by day 5, everything changed. Aaron had given Andika limited access to Jessica's cloud storage, which had not been fully locked down. Hidden in a folder were videos, some personal, some disturbing. Among the items seized was a flash drive that held backup copies of communications, including text messages between the man and someone using a number registered in Jessica's name. Jessica's name was never mentioned directly, but the tone of the conversations was intimate, like between two people who trusted each other completely. One message said, "Got what you asked for. American Fiancé's data is clean. We'll send batch tonight." A man Jessica had been seen with multiple times, an Australian named Callum, was found dead in a hotel room in Bangkok. Cause of death was listed as an overdose, but local news speculated foul play. He had been traveling with a woman matching Jessica's description. He still didn't know how much of it had been real. Surveillance footage from the lobby showed her leaving the hotel at 4:17 a.m., alone, wearing sunglasses and a black hoodie. Among them were clips of Jessica with different men in hotel rooms, their faces partially obscured. The videos didn't appear to be posted anywhere, but their presence suggested one thing. Someone had been recording, either with her knowledge or without it. The trip to Bali had indeed been a break before marriage. It had been a bridge to a different life, one built on deception and crime. But this was different. Jessica wasn't just pulling away. She was vanishing into a reality that felt entirely constructed, layered with lies and hidden motives. These weren't personal videos. These looked like labeled assets in a database. His information, full name, account number, recent transaction history had been photographed from his own laptop. He no longer knew if Jessica was alive, in hiding, or dead herself. All he knew was that the person he had loved, the woman he had planned to marry, was gone. And in her place stood a ghost tangled in lies, crime, and destruction. He realized he might have been part of something larger, used not just emotionally, but financially. Had Jessica ever loved him at all? Or had he always been a target, someone stable, clean, and unassuming, with accounts and resources that could be tapped into? He hadn't noticed it missing, but one picture showed it sitting open on their couch weeks before she left. It wasn't an accident. She had been collecting his information. Jessica had gone from being his fiancé to potentially being involved in blackmail, extortion, or worse. He was known in the area, a fixer of sorts, someone who provided access to exclusive parties, drugs, women, and connections to foreign money. The officer assigned to the case listened carefully, but admitted there wasn't too much they could do from their side unless criminal activity could be directly traced to Aaron's accounts. Still, the report was filed, and Aaron began monitoring his financials more aggressively. He froze one joint account, locked his credit reports, and hired a cybersecurity firm to scan his online presence. Locals whispered about him but rarely gave real details. He didn't show up in official records, but his influence could be traced through those who crossed paths with him. Jessica, it seemed, had quickly become one of them. The second batch of documents from the investigator came a few days later. Another claimed she had been at a party hosted by Nico in a rented villa that was known to be used for illegal filming and private transactions. People went there to indulge in everything they couldn't do in public. No cameras, no consequences, no rules. Jessica had met a man, Nico, at a beach bar in Seminyak. Nico wasn't just a passing fling. Aaron read through transcripts of interviews Andika had conducted. One bartender described Jessica as magnetic, charming, but clearly chasing something. There were timestamps, cross-referenced witness accounts, and photographs taken from a nearby drone. In one image, Jessica could be seen sitting poolside, surrounded by men, drinking from a bottle with a wide, detached smile on her face. She looked nothing like the woman he remembered, nothing like the future bride he had once held in his arms. At that party, Jessica wasn't just a guest. Aaron's stomach turned as he scanned the reports. These weren't just rumors. The situation grew even darker when Andika sent over information about the other men Jessica had been with. The next shocking revelation came from Jessica's digital footprint. What terrified Aaron more was that several files had file names resembling codes P_459K, client batch 7, USD_MAR_transfer. A second cloud folder had images of passports, ID cards, and even screenshots of banking apps. One of them belonged to Aaron. Aaron's world began to shift from sadness to fear. He went to the police and filed a report providing everything Andika had found so far. Andika kept digging. He found a lead in Malaysia. A known associate of Nico had been arrested with 3 fake passports and a bag full of SIM cards. Those messages revealed details of transactions, logistics, and drop-off points for data packages. Aaron couldn't breathe when he read that line. She had used him all along. In the final report Andika sent for the week, there was one chilling update. Authorities were still trying to identify her. The woman never returned. Aaron sat in silence after reading that. Everything they had built was a facade? And the worst part? By the time the 4th week of Jessica's absence rolled around, Aaron was no longer a man searching for answers. He was a man trying to escape the consequences of the truth. What had started as an emotional betrayal had spiraled into a criminal storm, and the fallout was beginning to touch his life in real, tangible ways. It began with a phone call from his bank. Suspicious activity had been flagged on one of his frozen accounts, despite it being locked. His employer had begun asking questions after the company's security system flagged his laptop for accessing suspicious IP addresses. To most people, Aaron looked like a man whose fiancé had cheated and disappeared. But to those looking closer, there was a darker suggestion that maybe he had known more than he was admitting, that maybe he had been involved. He had no idea how, but his work computer had been used to route encrypted messages through a private server in Singapore. Jessica had registered a business name under her full legal identity 6 months before their engagement. Whoever left it wanted him to know they were watching. The scam involved seducing or manipulating targets into revealing sensitive data banking credentials, business information, even private emails, and then using that information to blackmail or siphon money. No formal evidence connected Jessica to these acts, but her presence at multiple known villas, her proximity to suspects, and her disappearance right before key arrests suggested she had known more than she let on. Most victims didn't report the crimes, either out of shame or fear. It appeared Jessica had played the role of bait. No fingerprints were found. No camera footage from the hallway revealed who had left it. Not under her name, but under the false identity she had adopted. Only her perfume lingered faintly in the air, clinging to the curtains. He looked at the space where her suitcase had once sat and realized that when she packed for that trip, she had never planned to return. She had flown from Malaysia to Lisbon, using the identity of the Canadian woman. Security footage confirmed it was her. What she left behind was a shell of a man, a legal nightmare, and a question that would never be answered. Had she ever truly loved him, or had the entire relationship been the first step in a well-orchestrated con? She looked thinner, her hair dyed dark, but her posture and expressions were unmistakable. Authorities tried to apprehend her, but by the time the alert went through, she had vanished from the arrival terminal. She had likely left with someone waiting outside. The message was clear. Aaron was not just a bystander anymore. He was part of something that didn't want him asking more questions. He believed she was planning a career pivot, maybe even something she could run remotely while they raised a family. Now, it appeared to be a shell company possibly used to launder money, hide transfers, or serve as a legal front for whatever she had been doing overseas. The name on the company, the address she used to register it, his home address made it even worse. Whether he liked it or not, Aaron was now legally connected to the operations of that entity. It was listed as a media consulting agency, but it had never filed taxes, never operated under any clear address. Strange things began happening. One morning, he found a man sitting in a car across from his apartment building. Relief that she hadn't been killed or imprisoned. Dread that she was still a ghost, floating through borders, changing faces, and leaving destruction behind. He didn't know what her endgame was anymore: freedom, money, survival, or something darker. But one thing was clear: she was never coming back. Not to apologize, not to explain, and certainly not to finish the life they had started to build together. The man didn't move for nearly 2 hours, and when Aaron walked outside to confront him, the vehicle sped away. Days later, an envelope was slipped under his door. Inside was a single photograph: Jessica standing at a rooftop bar, holding a wine glass and smiling. Behind her, barely visible in the frame, was Aaron, blurry and out of focus, but clearly him. The photo was taken over a year ago during a trip to Istanbul. He'd never seen it before. It had been used to open at least 2 digital wallets and a PayPal merchant account. Through that company, she had received over $40,000 in international transfers funds that had since been withdrawn and untraceable. His accounts were being monitored now, not just by his bank, but by law enforcement. He was asked to step away from several projects while the company's internal team conducted a risk assessment. In the span of 1 month, Aaron had gone from trusted employee to potential insider threat. Someone had attempted to use his credentials to transfer funds to an overseas wallet, but the request had been blocked by automated fraud detection. When Aaron asked which country the attempt originated from, the answer was chilling: Thailand. He immediately informed the investigator, Andika, who followed up with his contact in Bangkok. The surveillance footage from the hotel where Callum had died was still under review, but early analysis confirmed that Jessica had been present in the building multiple times over a 2-week span. She had been using a passport under a different name, one traced back to a Canadian woman reported missing in Indonesia the year prior. Authorities now believed Jessica had obtained false identification, either stolen or manufactured, and had crossed multiple borders with it. Her face wasn't on any official watch lists yet, but her name, her movements, and her trail of associations were now on record with Interpol. Aaron, meanwhile, was trying to keep his job and his sanity intact. He barely recognized his own life. Friends avoided asking questions. Family members whispered behind his back, unsure whether to offer support or distance. The tension mounted when Andika uncovered a strange detail buried in public records. Aaron remembered her casually mentioning wanting to start something of her own. He never questioned it. As the layers unraveled, so did Aaron's sense of safety. He took the photo to the police, who suggested it might be a form of psychological intimidation. Meanwhile, Andika reported that 2 of the men Jessica had been associated with were officially under investigation for a data theft ring that had targeted Westerners traveling through Southeast Asia. There were even darker rumor stories whispered among investigators of certain individuals being lured, filmed in compromising situations, and then used as leverage. Then came the final blow. Andika called with one last piece of information. Jessica's passport had been flagged by customs at an airport in Europe. That meant she was still alive, still running, and still ahead of everyone chasing her. Aaron felt both relief and dread. In a quiet moment, Aaron stood in their old bedroom. The framed photos had been removed. Her closet was empty. Jessica had taken more than his love. She had taken his privacy, his safety, his trust, and twisted it into a weapon. The story should have ended when Jessica vanished. For most people, it would have. A woman leaves, commits a betrayal, maybe even crimes, and disappears into the world. But for Aaron, the end never came. He was living in the aftermath, and it stretched into every corner of his life like a slow, choking fog. He was still being contacted by financial institutions, investigators, and cybersecurity firms. His name had come up in an international audit. Someone had used his details to set up 2 additional offshore accounts. He'd never authorized them. Lawyers warned him to prepare for legal scrutiny if the investigation deepened. Not because he was guilty, but because he couldn't stand the looks anymore, the ones full of sympathy, suspicion, or quiet judgment. He moved out of their apartment, sold off their wedding decorations, and closed their joint accounts. Every object connected to her carried weight, and he couldn't breathe under it anymore. He relocated to a quieter town, took up freelance tech work, and tried to build something new from the ruins of his old life. Though there was no hard evidence tying him directly to criminal transactions, his association with Jessica's financial activities made him look complicit on paper. It was an unlisted email address, no subject line, just a video attachment. Aaron stared at it for a long time before opening it. His hands shook as he clicked play. The Jessica he had loved was gone. What remained was a trail of damage. questions, and a silence that became more disturbing with each passing day. Her trail faded into the underbelly of digital networks and vanished identities. He dated again briefly, but every time he pulled back. He couldn't bring himself to trust anyone completely. He became cautious, guarded. He triple-checked every message he sent. He never saved passwords on his devices. He kept his webcam covered, even when it wasn't on. She had joined the ranks of people who simply disappear, not into the ground, but into systems too vast and secretive to be followed. Jessica appeared on screen, sitting in front of a plain wall. But Aaron's story ends with a file, a question, and a woman who walked away from everything without a backward glance. She didn't offer excuses, only said that she got involved with people she couldn't escape. Some just end in silence. And missing persons who aren't legally missing. He stores it on an encrypted drive, tucked away in a drawer he never opens, not because he hopes for her return, but because part of him needs to remember that it happened. That he wasn't crazy. That love, even false love, can leave real scars. In crimes that are never formally recorded. In hearts broken not by lies alone, but by the realization that the person you loved never truly existed. If Jessica, wherever she was, ever thought about him, if she was alive, if she was safe, or if she had become another casualty in a world that punished even the people who tried to escape it. That at first it was just for fun, then it turned into opportunity, and then into fear. She had fallen asleep on his chest, her breathing soft and steady. He had watched her for a long time, thinking how lucky he was, thinking about the vows they would make, the life they would build, the children they might have. That version of the future had died, but the memory lived on, untouched by everything that came after. She claimed she hadn't realized how deep it went until it was too late. That she wanted out, but threats had been made against her, against Aaron, against anyone who knew too much. Her face looked different, tired, hollow. Her hair was darker now, her features thinner. Then she asked him not to try to find her. She ended with a warning. They don't forget. They watch everything. She stared directly into the camera, her eyes glassy. After the airport sighting in Lisbon, Interpol flagged Jessica's alias, but there were no further updates. She had moved again, this time more carefully. She stopped using any traceable digital services, no social media. No banking under her old identities, no photos, no sightings. Whoever was helping her had experience. And whoever she was now, she was someone who knew how to disappear completely. Aaron tried to move on, but the mess she left behind never gave him peace. He couldn't bring himself to. He didn't even know if he believed her. Was she telling the truth? Was the video another manipulation? A final twist of the knife to make him feel guilt or pity? Or was it a cry for help, buried under the weight of things she couldn't explain? Then he deleted them again. He couldn't bring himself to erase her completely. Every attempt to move on felt like a betrayal to the version of her he had loved, the version he now suspected never existed. He spoke to a therapist once who told him he wasn't mourning a person but a constructed identity, but that didn't help, because no matter what anyone said, he still remembered the warmth in her eyes, the way she used to look at him across a crowded room, the comfort of her presence on quiet nights. That wasn't just a scam. That was real, or at least he wanted to believe it was. At night, Aaron found himself replaying old conversations in his head, trying to identify the moment it all shifted. There had to be something he missed, a red flag, a lie, a hesitation in her voice. But the memories only confused him more. Jessica had been convincing. She had cried when he proposed. She had held his hand when they planned the wedding guest list. She had kissed him with what he thought was genuine affection. It was impossible to separate the real from the performance. That's what haunted him most. He deleted their photos. Then he restored them. Months passed, he left his job. But just when he thought the trail had gone cold, another message arrived. The video was low resolution, filmed in a dark room with poor lighting. In the video, she spoke quietly. She admitted to the cheating. She admitted to using his personal information. She said she was sorry, that she never stopped thinking about him. That parts of what they had were real. The screen went black. Aaron saved the file, but he never shared it. He showed it to no one. After that, nothing more came. No updates, no messages. Jessica became a ghost. Her face never appeared in headlines. No charges were filed. For Aaron, life went on, but never the same. Sometimes when he walked past strangers in the street, he wondered if one of them might know something, if someone out there still had eyes on him. In quiet moments, he returned to a single memory the night before she left. Aaron never got closure, not really. He learned that some stories don't end with truth or justice or clarity. He still keeps the video. He's never watched it again. Some stories end with a name, others with a headline.